Job chapter 1. Job, the book of Job chapter 1. I know we always talk about his suffering and all that he went through and his faith and his patience, but the Lord called my attention to something else here in Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man, catch this, was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, everyone his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so when the days of their feasting were gone about that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. But Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their heart." Thus did Job continually. And in that, man, I saw the qualities of a godly father. And that's what I want to talk about, the qualities of a godly father. The qualities of a godly father. As I began seeking God Monday for what he would have me to say today, I discovered there's very few examples nowadays for our young people to look up to. When we were growing up, we always had somebody that we wanted to be like. And maybe our scope of men were smaller because we went to church more then. And so we saw men in church. And there was something about them that we always wanted to be like. They were great examples. We wanted to pray like Brother Clark and Brother Matt. We wanted to dress like Brother Clyde Walker Sr. and Jewel Smith. We wanted to sing like Brother McLaughlin. All the fellas in the celestial chorus, we wanted to sing like this man we honor today. When he would get up to sing, if we saw he was finna lead a song, we'd say, "Now look, they finna start shouting. You catch this one, and I'm gonna catch that one, and you catch that one." We already had our plan. We had something that we saw in those men. Brother Bobby saw, man, I love the way he taught his men's Bible class. He taught it with so much energy, and just men in that day that we wanted to be like. And they carried themselves in a way that they were good examples for children to follow. Today, where are the examples? They recognized they were older and they acted like they were older. They were not older trying to act like they were young. And they didn't have to act young to relate to us, because they could be who they were, and they spoke to us and we understood, which kept a line of respect between us as young folk and them as elders. Well, my brothers and sisters, since today is Father's Day, where are the fathers who are examples for their children? Daddy, is your pants sagging? Is your hair looking all wild? I mean, you know, we all grew up and we had our little thing, you know, afros and the blow-out kits and all that was our day. But you ain't see a whole lot of the older folk looking like us. They held their own because they understood who they were. Are we going to the strip clubs together? I mean, I got a reason for saying that, because it's some fathers and sons in the strip club. Mothers and daughters in the strip club too. Because we got a lot of parents trying to be their children's friends instead of being the parent that they need to be. And even if y'all gonna go to a strip club, why go with your child? I know I'm saying some stuff that folk don't like, because we're in a different day, and they say I'm old-fashioned, old folk, and sometimes I feel antiquated, but it's just some things that some lines you ought to hold. One of my sons got from the Navy, and we were at the table at family gathering, and he decided to order a drink, and I was nice. I didn't front him there. I just waited till it was over and said, "Come here, let me look. We don't drink together. If I was gonna drink, we ain't gonna drink together. So don't you do that in front of me, and I'm not gonna do that in front of you. There's a line. Somebody has to be the example for the children." And of course, y'all know what we're seeing in this world right now? People who had no examples in their lives. Daddies was missing. And so yes, that lady just going to the gym the other morning get killed for nothing. You know, people, they just killing for, it's a result of daddy shortages. Let me go and move with the message I got to get through. We need some men who are fathers with godly qualities. And I ain't saying you got to act holier than thou. Deliver me from those who act holier than thou, because they ain't holier than thou. If they're holier than thou, they lying. They putting on a holy front for people who see them. Be real. Don't act like a Christian. Be one. Job, I told you we hear about all of his calamities and his trouble, but I want y'all to look at these first verses, because he's got some qualities that every godly father ought to have. It's believed that Job lived during the days of the patriarchs, back in the day of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, before God had given the written law. And before he had appointed priests to be the religious leaders. During that day, the father was the religious leader of the family. I wish I had somebody. And when you look, even when Jesus showed up, he made fathers the priests of the family. Your responsibility is to teach, to guide, to lead them in the ways of the Lord. And so when we look at Job, first thing we see is Job gives a pattern to follow. Yeah, Job was a religious man. He feared God, which meant he reverenced God. He had respect for God. That's something a lot of folk ain't got now. That's why we've had to have men sometime around the clock to watch the church over there, because folk ain't got no respect for God no more. They don't learn reverence or respect unless dad is teaching. Have y'all noticed? Mama got to say something a few times. Daddy ain't got to say it. Okay, y'all. He ain't got his number one because God gave him the responsibility. Job feared or reverenced God. He trusted God. He was a true worshiper of God. You see, he walked perfect and upright. He was a true worshiper. He lived according to the will of God. He was governed by God's divine law in everything he did. Now you need to know that don't mean that Job was sinless, but he was righteous. And he was righteous because of his faith in God. Matter of fact, if you look at the faith heroes in Hebrews chapter 11, they died looking forward to Jesus Christ coming. Job is one of those fellas who lived righteously. And let me tell you, he lived righteous. And what that means is he was looking to God for salvation through the blood of the Lamb. That's why he kept sacrificing animals. He dreaded the thought of evil. He shunned evil. He didn't want to have nothing to do with evil. And he constantly sought to please God. Don't that sound like a godly father to you? One who knows how to worship and one who seeks to please God? Because here's the thing. Your children will always do what they see you do. You can tell them to don't smoke all you want to. If you smoking, they gonna do what you if I better not go down that list. I'm finna go down the list, but if you doing some stuff, they gonna do some stuff. Amen. Can I leave it at that? Y'all don't want me to tread in that water, do you? Because whatever you do and whatever you are, that is what you create in your child. Okay, I knew it was going to get tight. Job was a pattern for his children to follow. He didn't just talk righteous, he lived righteous. He was pious, devoutly religious, but he was also prosperous. But can I tell you, his money didn't run him because he trusted in God more than he trusted in riches. A godly quality for a godly father. My brothers and sisters, but then you got to understand, he's a true worshiper. What do you mean? Well, he prayed, he trusted God, and then he offered sacrifice. That sounds like church to y'all, don't it? You pray, and then you give your offering. Have I got a witness? Job had no problem being a true worshiper. But then he gives us a path to follow. Because a godly father teaches his family. He's the light to his family. In other words, he does what Moses said. Moses said, Deuteronomy 6:5, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And then Jesus came along in Matthew and said, and that's the greatest commandment. So I hear Moses said, look, these commandments ought to be written on your hearts. And then catch this, he said, you ought to impress them on your children. I better say that again. The commandment, the greatest commandment, you got to impress it on the hearts of your children. You got to talk about it. And y'all go back, you can read Deuteronomy 6. He said you can talk about it when you sit down and at home and when you walk along the road, you can talk about it. When you lay down and when you get up, you need to talk about this law. You need to tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your forehead. You ought to write them on your door frames of your houses and on your gates, because teaching does not happen by accident. You got to do it on purpose. Those of us who grew up in church, we learned those commandments. I was in a revival one night, got through preaching, a lady wanted to have words. She said, well, you know, I keep all the commandments except about 2 or 3 of them. She said, I have a little trouble with those 2 or 3. And I said, Pastor, let me respond to that. And he said, go right ahead. I said, well, let me tell you, if you break 2 or 3, you done broke all 10. So you're in a bad shape. I said, but there is a commandment that the Lord has given, that if you can hold on to that, then it covers all the other 10. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. I said, if you can do that, you in good shape. But you got to teach it. The children ain't going to just pick it up. And we busy teaching them everything but the commandment of the Lord. They know how. Y'all know I get lost in this thing here, but when I need some help, I go to the smallest one of my grandchildren and say, look, I don't know how to do this, that, or other. And they go right in here and do it, because they can learn any and everything they want to learn. It's just the parents ain't teaching them no more. How many of y'all like me, you learn Bible stories at home? Mama told you about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You learned about Daniel in the lion's den at home. You learned about the rainbow and Noah at home. They taught us. They did not expect it to happen by accident. If you're going to teach, you got to teach them on purpose. And so what Job does, I can imagine, as he's doing all of this, he's teaching his children to do the same. Fathers teach their children to love God. They don't just start loving him. You got to teach them to love him. I think that's why most houses, when we grew up, you see something on the wall, or what they call the coffee table, that said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I know we ain't got that no more. But that used to be, so that's something we learned as children. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. If we didn't understand that, Mama them gave us understanding. When I get up and get ready for church, you get up. And you get ready for church. Because if I'm at church, you ain't going to be at home. Have I got a witness? The last woman Freddie was first year in college. He had come home, and we were getting dressed, and Fred said, I don't feel like, but before he could get like going to church, before he could feel like it, Mama had grabbed the extension cord. And she went, you remember that, Fred? She went to work, and now he had church every Sunday at 8 o'clock. And we don't start till 10. But they showed us, as for me in my house, don't you even say you don't feel like going to church. You will get up, put your clothes on, and give God what's due him, a quality of a godly God. Those of us who are in church now, we in church now because Mama them impressed upon us. And they made us go until we started loving going. Have I got a witness? I got to move on. He gives us a path But then lastly, he gives us a prescription. Because see, he had children just like we got children. And I always tell children, don't try to act old, be young while you're young. In other words, all that stuff that we did as young folk, they don't do. And they don't need us trying to be judgmental of them. When they do stuff, just remember what you was doing. When you were their age, I tell them, be young. Just make sure you keep God first. I said last week, I don't care how late you stay out on Saturday night. Make sure you go home, bathe, put some mouthwash in, and go to Sunday school Sunday morning and give God what's due him. Got a witness. Job gives us a prescription to follow. Because he carried out his spiritual duties. What you mean? He prayed for his children. And you know, I got to say this. He's here today. I got to say this. One of the most powerful things I've seen in my life as a pastor is a daddy praying for his son. You know, mamas always praying for their children. But I remember this young man who grew up, graduated last Sunday. They called me to the hospital and they said, the doctor talking about cancer. When I got to the hospital, I saw his daddy on his knees talking to God about his son. And I need to tell you, God honor the father's prayer. We need more people who are godly fathers, who will pray for their children. It don't hurt. All that other stuff you're doing, it's all right, but don't nothing beat prayer for your child. I'm telling y'all, long as my children were small and in my house, when I was able to stay up longer than they could, I'd go in their rooms and put my hand on them and start praying to God on their behalf. And I'd ask God, they're going to make mistakes, but I'm asking you not to let their mistakes destroy them. I want you to keep them in your care, and I want you to use them to your glory, because we need fathers who will pray for their children. And Job, he knew his children were out there partying. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And the sons would have parties at their house. Each one took a turn having a party at their house. And they would invite their sisters to come to the party. But every day in the morning, when the party was over, Job, he went and offered sacrifices for all 10 of his children. Am I gonna witness? He gave us a prescription. He prayed for them, and then he gave to God on their behalf, which is why you ought to sow into the kingdom, because every time we sow into the kingdom, our children will reap the benefits. Have I gonna witness? I tell my children, when I go to the store, I tip folk. When I go to the restaurant, I tip folk. When I go to my doctor even, I tip them. They say, why you do that, Daddy? Because I know what the scripture says about I've been young, but now I'm old. I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. And so every time you see me give, I'm sowing on behalf of my children. that one of these little days I got to close my eyes and I won't be here no more. But I know a God who promised to take care of my children. Have I got a witness? So I close by telling you, take an example from Job. When you go home, read Job chapter 1 again and follow the qualities of a godly father. Have I got a witness? And now, thank God, we have a father. Yeah, with all of these qualities, we have a father through Jesus Christ. Y'all remember Jesus? He prayed for us. Yeah, but he offered a sacrifice when he hung on an old rugged cross. Yeah, and he did it just for us because he knew, that we would need forgiveness. And when it came to forgiveness of sin, he provided a way for our forgiveness. When next Friday he hung on Calvary's cross, have I got a witness? The first thing he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He died on the hill of Calvary, but he didn't stay there. On the third day morning, he got up from the grave, and I hear John saying, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Is there anybody here know my Jesus? Is there anybody here know my Lord? And he all right? And he all right? And he all right? Say yeah! Qualities of a godly father. Jesus has given us the pattern. He has given us the path. And he's given us prescription. Hold up your hand, Brother Carl Sr. Brother Carl Sr., Dedrick Carl Sr., that's the young man. Let me tell you, ain't a better a baseball player. So that boy, he was on his knees talking to God for his son. You gotta know, and I know he didn't stop there because you can't stop. You got to keep on praying for your children. Offer up for them. I ain't worried about nothing. The devil made me sick, couldn't stop me, made him sick. Because if he can't get you, he'll try to get your children. But then how many of y'all know? How many of y'all know that with God got his arm of protection? No weapon formed against you or your children or your children's children will be able to prosper. Thank God we all got a Father with all of those qualities. No weapon formed against shall prosper. No, it won't work. No weapon told y'all the other week, when you speak it, Psalm 57:19, God say, I create what you speak. He said, I'll create what you speak now. Now. We've been standing, you've been going through some struggle of your own. But now you want God's protection for your children, don't you? Then I want the brothers, I'm going to let all y'all do it, but I want the brothers to speak it on behalf of your children. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. It won't work. No. Yeah, formed against me shall prosper. It won't work. God will do what He said He will do. Stand by His word. He will come through. No weapon. Now, mama, I know y'all pray all the time. But if you want to speak it, this is your opportunity. I know we got to go, but mama, y'all gonna stand up and declare it through your voice on behalf of your children and your grandchildren. Come on here. No form against shall prosper. It won't work. Form shall prosper. It won't. God will do what He said.